So the sneak peek leak for Boruto chapter 35 has just been released, and we end up seeing something quite interesting in this panel, and it really announces that something pretty interesting is going to be happening in this arc. We see Sarada Uchiha. She ends up saying, okay, for now visibility is good, and then we see a kunai. A kunai was thrown, and then Sarada is able to react to it, a spiral pattern. This is what she tells us. So I believe that the person who is appearing here is going to have a conversation with Sarada, and this conversation is going to be extremely important, especially due to the fact that this is right after Sarada has been released from the hospital. So it's going to be very intriguing to see exactly what was said. So in this video, we're going to be giving a bit of our guesses, and I'm very curious to what your guess may be, because it is going to tell us a lot about what is going to be happening next. The first person that we all think about is Boruto. Boruto is a person who is capable of using the Flying Raijin, and the spiral pattern that we see matches closely with that of the Uzumaki, so it would make quite a bit of sense for the person who is using the kunai to be Boruto, due to the simple facts that Boruto does use kunai, Boruto is an Uzumaki, and Boruto is close to Sarada. In the past, we have heard that Boruto had something that he wanted to say to Sarada that he still hasn't said yet, so it would make quite a bit of sense for it if it was Mangekyo Sharingan related, that it would be said now, that Boruto would appear towards Sarada, and Boruto would end up telling Sarada everything that he needed to tell her regarding the Mangekyo Sharingan, relaying some messages concerning the Mangekyo Sharingan from Sasuke. However, off closer inspection, this seems a little out of character to be Boruto, and there are several reasons for that. The first thing is that we have never seen Boruto actively use this kunai with an Uzumaki spiral, so I don't really think that it matches up with Boruto and anything we've seen. Boruto has been able to use the Flying Raijin with kunai, especially in close quarter battles, as we saw in the fight versus Jiro. The limitations only apply when Boruto is no longer able to use the kunais. Those limitations only apply when Boruto is trying to travel long distances, which require him to use a little bit more concentration. So although we've seen Boruto use kunais, we have never actively seen him use a kunai with an Uzumaki pattern. We've seen that there are Uzumaki patterns in his other symbols, but we've never actually seen him use a kunai with those Uzumaki patterns. The next point that makes it a little bit harder for it to be Boruto is that the person who is using this kunai is not actively using the Flying Raijin. And we know this to be true because Sarada ends up turning around. Why would Sarada turn around if Boruto is using the kunai for a Flying Raijin? Boruto would simply teleport to that kunai and Sarada would look at him directly in the eyes. This tells us that the person who is using the kunai is trying to get Sarada's attention, which is why Sarada ends up turning behind the kunai, because the person who threw the kunai is either on top of the building or somewhere behind her. This would make quite a bit of sense for Sarada to be turning around. So due to all those reasons, I think it is possible for it to be Boruto, as Boruto could have threw this kunai just to get Sarada's attention, but it is quite unlikely due to the fact that Boruto has other means of doing things where he could simply come right next to Sarada, and Boruto doesn't seem like he would throw a kunai to get Sarada's attention, especially after her vision issues that she had. So I don't really think that this is exactly a move that Boruto would be making towards Sarada. A lot of people would then point to another potential Uzumaki candidate, and that Uzumaki candidate is Code. Now, this seems pretty interesting, especially due to the fact that Sarada is being targeted by Code. Maybe Code is a potential Uzumaki. We do know that Code had red hair, which is a trait given to Uzumakis. Uzumakis have it, and it is proof of the fact that they have higher chakra compared to everybody else, which we've seen in Kushina, and which we've also seen in Code regarding the red hair. So this could potentially be a kunai that hints at potential Uzumaki lore concerning Code, who could be related to that clan. So this is a possibility that Code is that person. However, there is a few complications. We know that Code is not an Otsutsuki, thus he is not able to hide his chakra signal. So if Code is indeed in the village, everybody would know and would be on high alert. It would be something that everybody knows instantly through Ina. So I think it reduces the likelihood of it being Code due to that simple fact. And in addition, if Code came to the village, it would simply be to capture Sarada. And we don't see that being the case, as why would they throw the kunai so that Sarada's attention would then be moved towards the direction where the kunai came from? If this was a sneak attack that Code did so he could come into the village and grab Sarada quickly and go, that wouldn't be the move that Code would end up making. The smart move would simply be to capture Sarada immediately and then go into one of his claw marks. And due to that simple fact, I really think it is unlikely for Code to be in the village. Everybody would simply know, and it just doesn't make sense for Code to come into the village this quickly, in my personal opinion. Now, the next person that we have to discuss is probably the most interesting person, and I believe that the evidence points towards this character potentially being the one that we are all looking for concerning this kunai. The other potential Uzumaki candidate to have this spiral is Karin, and this would make quite a bit of sense. We do see that Sarada is currently dealing with eye issues. We know that Karin does end up wearing glasses, which was one of the reasons why it was suspected that Karin was Sarada's mother. And we also know that Sarada has met with Karin before. So if Karin was to do something like that, Sarada would then fix her eyes on Karin and would then immediately figure out who she is, as she did meet her in the past. They do have a little bit of an interesting bond. It wasn't one that was too deep, but it was just one where Karin was genuinely trying to help Sarada, so it is something that is definitely possible. And due to the simple fact that Sarada has been dealing with eye issues, and Karin is not only connected to healing jutsu, but is also connected to Orochimaru, as she still ended up working in the lab where Orochimaru is during the Boruto era. So if Karin is to be the person who is to help Sarada regarding her eyes, and then link it to Orochimaru in some way where Orochimaru has and knows information about where Sasuke's old eyes were, this is a potential thing that could happen as a new arc, where the beginning of this arc is Sarada leaving the village to go with Karin. And this would make quite a bit of sense due to the simple fact of all the connections regarding Karin. Another important point would be the fact that Sarada has just been released from hospitalization. This means that there must have been a little bit of time that passed that then allowed Sarada to be discharged, as she still would have needed a little bit more time in the hospital before her vision had stabilized, which is why in this panel what is being referenced is that her visibility is good, compared to the fact that in previous chapters we saw that Sarada's visibility was bad when Sakura ended up showing fingers and they were very blurry to Sarada even when she was using her glasses. But now Sarada is clearly able to see the kunai quite clearly, which means that there must have been some time that passed, maybe a day at least, a night, which would allow this change to take place. And we do know that with the Mangekyo Sharingan side effects, it does take a person a little bit of time for them to be relieved of those effects, which would then lead Sarada to be released from hospitalization. This may have given Sakura a bit of time to go and contact Kirin. Then Kirin ends up making her way into the village and is then prompted into meeting with Sarada. She ends up throwing this kunai towards Sarada to get Sarada's attention, as she is above the hospital, as she has been waiting for Sarada to be released from hospitalization. This is what is then going to lead towards Sarada potentially leaving the village or having an intriguing conversation with Kirin. Maybe Karin already came with Sasuke's eyes. Maybe that is a possibility. But what I think is more probable is for us to get Sarada to leave the village. And the reason why I say that this would make the most sense is due to the fact that Code would not come to get Sarada if Sarada is in the village. This is simply due to the fact of the strong characters that are there. Kawaki had his limiters removed, and we do also know that Demon got his limiters removed. So if Sarada is unable at this point to use the Mangekyo Sharingan, she is vulnerable, but she is not vulnerable in the leaf. She would be vulnerable either while being transported from the leaf to Orochimaru's location, or while she's getting this operation done concerning her eyes, as I don't think Orochimaru is strong enough to prevent Code from being able to do something to Sarada when she's in this vulnerable state. And I also don't think that Karin or Sugetsu or any other person in the Orochimaru lair is going to be capable of stopping Code at that moment, which is why it is more probable for Code to attack during the transit or during the operation that Sarada has to undergo to get her eyes. So as of right now, I would say that I am leaning towards Karin being that person who is used. It matches up perfectly with the Uzumaki spiral. We have never seen Boruto do such a thing, and it really doesn't make sense in my opinion for it to be Boruto. Although it is still probable it could be just something different, but it would make quite a bit of sense for it to be Karin. Another potential person that it could be would be Kakashi, where this spiral wouldn't really mean or reference anything concerning the Uzumaki, but the deceptive play that is at hand right here, where we see somebody throw a kunai simply to get somebody's attention to where the kunai came from, is something that is very Kakashi-like. And thus, in my personal opinion, although the probability is not high as of right now, it is definitely a probability that is there, where Kakashi could be making his awaited return that Ikimoto has been hinting towards for quite some time to potentially help Sarada regarding the Monkey Sharingan. What he really would have to offer, I really don't know, because I believe that a character like Karin related to Orochimaru, who may potentially know where Sasuke's eyes may be, is something that would make quite a bit of sense. So that's personally how I would lean to. I do believe that these four characters are the ones that make the most sense. Boruto is probable. If I had to give it a rating, I would say 20%. Code is really a 10%, and we have Karin to me, who is a 65% chance of being the correct answer, while Kakashi is really just 5%. So you guys, let me know what you guys are personally feeling. It is quite clear that this is the start of a new arc, and whatever comes after this page is going to be pivotal in us understanding what is really going to be done concerning Sarada's eyes, Sarada's potential involvement, and how Code could potentially ambush Sarada on her way or while she is getting the operation done to get her new eyes. Sakura has shown quite a bit of resolve, especially in that last panel, so I wouldn't be surprised if she found a way to contact Karin. It wouldn't make too much sense for her to contact Orochimaru, but to contact Karin, especially after the arc where we had all of them go to Orochimaru's lair and base, it would make quite a bit of sense for all of this to be true. But it's just a matter of time until we find out. But personally, I do want to hear who you guys think this could be in the comment section below. So you guys let me know. It's been your boy Dynasty, and I'm out, bruh.